or how his system works and what he does and ways that you can plug in and get involved if you're interested in aquatics. You need to use this, I'm sorry, because you have a soft voice. Get close and ask questions. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Don't be nervous, we don't bite. We're really friendly ones.
She forgot to say I'm really shy, so it takes a while for me to warm up. My name is Eric. Good morning. Thanks for coming to visit me. I haven't had so many adults here in a long while. I usually pack it up with lots of kids. I don't know where to begin. I guess my background is I grew up in Kenya, and I grew up like pretty much in a semi-arid region of Kenya, which means people depend on rain. If it doesn't rain, people don't eat. There's only 2 rain seasons in Kenya. So you can imagine somewhere in between these people who are hungry. And so I watch people try to raise food under that kind of environment. And I used to be really naughty as a kid. And when you live in farms, there's no shortage like of punishments. And so I pretty much ran away from all that, and I went and I studied engineering. Studied robotics, came over here, studied computer science, and then pretty much worked in the high-tech industry. But I was stuck here for about 10 to 15 years before I got my green card. And so my dad died when I was here, my sister and a couple of staff, and I pretty much couldn't travel back. So the day I got my green card, I quit my job the same week, and I went back to Kenya. And I spent most of my time in the countryside, and then I actually was able to see people struggling alone with food and all that, and that's how I started doing what I do. So pretty much what I do is a lot of people call it aquaponics. I've never really understood that word. And the reason I never understood it is I don't think you can use it in something like, is it Monopoly or Scrabble? Scrabble?
Scrabble.
I like words you can use on Scrabble. Pretty much what I do is I create my own deserts, which I do pretty much by using rocks, which is the worst. But I assume this is worse than most deserts. So, and then I pretty much recycle my water. So the trick is the best way to look at this is to look at it as a composting system for fish waste. So what I do is I have my fish waste on one side, and on the other side I have my plants. You can imagine if this was a composting system I guess I gave away my answer. What I wanted to say was when you have chicken waste or cow waste or plant waste or waste from your kitchen or whatever, you pretty much have to compost it before you can give it to plants, because plants don't have mouths. They don't eat in the same way we think of eating. And so in this case, I have fish and I actually culture bacteria on the rocks. And so the bacteria is what breaks down the fish waste and pretty much turns it into a form of nitrogen that plants can eat. And so the plants take it up and then the water goes back to the fish when it's clean. So that's pretty much.
Where are you hiding your plants?
Actually, what happened is I harvested all my plants, but they look really weird. So there's a shortcut at it. But actually, the whole garden is full of ginger.
You grew
so
that.
This time,
To plant ginger.
I'm going to plant ginger. It's just I didn't think it would germinate so slowly during the cold. And so I make them I started with big gardens like we use in Kenya. But a big part of my project, really, one of the reasons there isn't too many plants in my gardens is because I mostly focus on software and hardware. So pretty much I take electronics and sensors and I put them into the gardens, and so that I can actually monitor them and run them and control them from anywhere in the world. So for me it was I started liking farming, and not liking farming, but liking to address human problems. And then I figured it's not that useful for me to spend my day making holes to put plants when I can actually use a computer better. So for me, it's how do I combine technology that I have with what I do? And so that's what this is. This is one setup. I have another small one. Inside there is my office. If you guys go in, you can see where I develop. And if you open that door, you'll actually go to my other side, and there's I'm building a greenhouse on the other side with a big fish tank. Can you see it?
Inside the window there?
You can open the door. And so pretty much you'll notice I have little gardens that are 2.5 gallons that come as little kits that I actually use for educational purpose with kids. And at the same time, I have got fish tanks that are about 5,000 gallons. So they all appear different, but what's in common with me is I use the same software.
Aren't these little examples of the kid-sized ones right here?
those are the old examples. So if you enter in my office, you'll actually see the new ones. But then if you see like these are sort of the kids for the kids. But mostly, if you notice, I computer design these. I computer design this. So my focus is not so much trying to grow a plant and fish, but more like how do I integrate technologies. So like I teach how to use like a CNC router, how do you use your everyday tools to actually be able to grow yourself food. It's more of my focus because the kids, it's harder and harder to connect them to the future. I mean, to the past when their heads are all in the future. So I just feel like it's not important for us to keep drawing for them this beautiful utopia we used to have when their worlds will be really different. So I think when they get like tools and skills that they use and they're used to, then I think it makes it easier for them to grow food and stuff like that. So pretty much the whole idea is these are, I teach like how to use a computer to design stuff and use CNC routers. Like for instance, I have absolutely no carpentry skills. And, but I figure if I can draw it on a computer and I know exactly what to put and where to put, then it really doesn't need, you don't need to know like all the special joints that you need to be able to make something, which is what carpentry is. But with a computer, you know, I can create what I want, model it, and very quickly put it together. And so these are sort of like my old kits. If you guys want to come in from
Maybe we can do like a few at a time. Like if you go in, look around, and then come out.
yeah,
And we'll set
so
it the
there's more
next.
that side and more this side.
So why don't and then we need to. Okay, and we got about 5 minutes, so we need to start.
Wow.
My name is Eric. Yeah, my company name is Kijani Grows. And then
What does Kijani mean?
Jenny means green. The color money.
Is green?
Yeah, green grows. So this is sort of like where, as you can see, a typical farmer office. So I spend most of my time. I make things like this. This is my interpretation of farming. So this is what I can do better. So these are like I can monitor gardens I'm looking at all the way from China to Chicago to here. Some in India. So that's a typical garden that I make like for home use. Yeah. So those flat pack like an IKEA garden, all you need is a hex key to put it up together for yourself. These are sort of like little gardens I'm making like for kids and schools. So the whole idea is like I used to do the big gardens with schools, but I realized very few kids would actually participate. So the whole idea is like eventually it's trickle down to like, okay, how do I make a garden that every kid can walk at their own pace, and when they're finished, they can actually. So when they're done with this, it's actually they build themselves a little computer that they can use to grow food. So pretty much the whole idea is to use technology they're used to and things that actually, like me, I wouldn't be interested in farming if it wasn't technology.
So the fish tank goes at the bottom.
The fish tank goes at the bottom, so this is pretty much how the fish tank looks. And then it goes at the bottom like this, pump and everything. And then the little space here is for electronics. So these I make with laser cutters, pretty much. How do you come from a box and how do you end up with a 3D thing that you can actually grow food in? And like these are 3D printers, and when they're done, they make the little electronics that go in here. And they're really easy. The whole idea is actually I had like a little kid that was 10 years yesterday make one. The whole idea is they just come this way. You put pretty much just put the screws.
So this replaces the filtration, a typical filtration system in a fish tank,
Yes.
by using the gray water to clean itself instead of having the gravel at the bottom,
Yes.
which is typical.
And you can grow.
And you can use it to grow. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And then it's easy to maintain because everything is not like inside the fish tank.
Right.
So like in that case, I never have to change my water. All I do is I just like add water. And it's actually all like, I haven't hooked up the computer, but like all the adding water, the feeding, and everything just happens automatically.
What about the pH balance of
The
the?
pH balance, all automatic. After a while, the whole idea is like once, I mean, I can monitor it through things like those.
Is that the real for that?
That one is actually like a, that is actually this box here. What it's doing now is you can notice there's a temperature, humidity, CO2. If you notice like towards the end here, CO2, it's starting to rise up. Can you see?
Yeah.
That's because there's a lot of people in the room. So when you guys are done, and I'm actually counting everybody that walked inside here. So when you guys are done, this is actually like when you guys are done, I'll be able to tell like, okay, what's the effect of CO2? What happens when people like increase? And that trickles down to like, I notice like in the afternoon, kids like don't focus a lot. And when I've been to a lot of like public schools, they actually have really bad ventilation. So my whole thing is like, if I have a garden that can even monitor CO2, the whole thing is like, okay, it's not about the garden, it's about knowledge. It's like, how do you use, so by monitoring CO2 for plants, I can actually start saying like, okay, this is what happens in the afternoon. This is what happens during the day. Is there a correlation between like things like CO2 or ventilation and grades, in schools? So very quickly, a lot of these transfers to just other ways, because the whole thing is like, if I can turn my physical environment into data, then I can interact with it differently. And so a small garden like that becomes really cool. Like the best part about it is when I look at the data for a very long while, the garden data baselines and becomes the same. And so what actually sits on top is my lifestyle. I don't know if that makes sense, because the garden doesn't change on a day-to-day. So if I look at it like after about 1 year, I can very quickly remove the data. Like I'll be able to tell like that was different. Why did the CO2 increase during midday? When plants are actually supposed to be using CO2 for photosynthesis. So it doesn't make sense. And so to me, I interact with data differently, which means eventually when I'm done with all this, I can actually say like make gardens that can say monitor seniors, because in a little while I can actually like remove the garden information, and like if somebody's not moving and say they fall down and break their hip, you can actually tell just with nothing but a garden. Imagine if you're disabled or on a wheelchair or blind, you've never gardened your whole life. Same garden, technology makes it easy for that sense. I can learn things here. I can teach people in India how to do the same thing. So what I found is as I put more and more robotics into gardens, I stopped having big farms. Actually, my gardens became smaller and smaller because.
But more productive? Smaller but more productive?
Yeah, if I show you like, if you go to my website and you look at, I should have put up my pictures for my food, but roughly I eat so much food because of the gardens, you won't even believe. I think last year I probably posted about 500 pictures of food that I just from my kitchen garden, just supplementing, because the whole thing is it's next to me. So one, I don't need a lot of food. I just need food when I want it. So I just like can't put it in my scramble, can't put it in my sandwich, my Chinese, and so it just acts like a I don't know how to explain.
Your energy source.
Yeah.
So the amount of food that you get out of this garden compensates for all the electricity that you're using for lights and for the electronics and all that?
Yes, the electronics use very little electricity. The lights, I use LED lighting, use very little electricity. So pretty much, I would say my iron box probably, using my iron box once every day uses more electricity than my garden every day. And so,
What's that?
like the thing people use like to straighten out creases.
Oh, an iron.
Oh.
An iron.
Iron uses more energy.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. This we called an iron box a long time ago because they actually used to have a box where you put.
We don't say box.
I think we've got time for one more question. I think you have one, and then I think, unfortunately, Eric, this
That's
is
okay.
fascinating.
That's
We probably
okay.
stay here
I
all
teach
day.
classes, you guys can come for classes. There's one at the end of the month. I teach classes on how to make gardens and how to build electronics and even how to combine the two if you want.
What's your website?
KijaniGrows.com.
Kijani. Kijani Grows.
Have you done any systems like this raising fish to eat?
Yeah, but I'm more, a lot of those are like more of my African projects. So when I'm here, I get like, most people go to the store for their food. So I'm actually not gonna, I don't like doing things just for the sake of, so I'm not gonna say like I'm trying to do an urban farming. Yes. So in the next room, there's a 5,000 gallon tank. I'm actually trying to make a conservation program. So I'm trying to do like native fish. What happened is a lot of the native fish species got decimated when people started having like game fish.
Yeah.
And so pretty much even though California has lots of rivers, a lot of the native Californian fish actually get killed because of invasive species, which is what happens when you say you're going to raise tilapia, which is what happens when you say you're going to raise catfish. Pretty much you're doing the same thing everybody's used to because we all need to get the same food wherever we go. But the truth is every neighborhood has its own
Ecosystem.
and the Bay Area is like, the Bay Area rivers are full of life. but then there's just certain fish that you can't get in the Bay Area. And so the reason I haven't put fish in there is I'm actually I've been having a problem with game and fish. I'm trying to see if I can get their support, but I'm trying to see if I can raise I'm more interested in doing conservation programs than just filling a tank full of ugly catfish. I'll never eat. Just so that I can say like, hey, I have a program, and you know what? I can actually get a fried fish in Chinatown for $1 a pound, and then cook it and clean it. So
That doesn't make sense.
so the whole idea is like, how do we keep using things that are practical and not just keep doing things that we like, which are pretty much driven by non-profit and things like that. Nobody would support because there's really no true future in them, sort of thing. So for me, it's like, how do I still do things that can allow me to get a 401k plan, and get like a retirement
Monetize
plan
your
and do all that
brain.
stuff without necessarily having to
Make a living.
Yeah.
go to sell my problems so somebody can give me money.
Eric, thank you very, very, very much.
Very
I'm gonna head you guys out.
I'm gonna bring up Maria.
What
The
are
last
the
one.
native species that you're trying to?
I'm trying to do Sacramento park. Yeah. So what happened is when they brought in blue
One
gill
sweep of-
and a lot of the game fish, the native Sacramento park did not protect its eggs. So all
No,
the other
and
fish
she's
had
gone,
its eggs,
so
and
I'm
so
gonna
they are
give it
finished.
to him.
There's a few places where there's a few
Are
pools
you
that didn't get
recording now?
isolated, like the one at
I am,
Barkley.
but you guys.
Is like one of the mescal pools or something. Actually has fish you can't get because it didn't get affected by
Sacramento
game
Church.
Yeah.
And then you're doing blackfish
I did
for your
blackfish too.
for your
That's-
filter feeder.
Yes.
And